The poison was already in the glass before Flora Mensah ever walked into the room. She did not know that. She knew the champagne was expensive. She knew the room was too quiet for a celebration. She knew the man standing at the far window had not touched his drink. She had been hired to serve, to move between tables with her tray and her uniform and her practiced invisibility. 32 years old, Ghanaian-American. 2 jobs, 1 dream, and a rent check that was already 3 days late. She was supposed to be invisible tonight. The problem was she was too good at watching people, and she saw the man at the bar slide something into the 3rd glass from the left. She saw it, and she froze. And then she saw who the 3rd glass was meant for. There is a specific kind of exhaustion that belongs to women who hold everything together with their bare hands. Flora Mensah knew that exhaustion the way she knew her own name. She worked mornings at a dry cleaning counter on 9th Street. She worked evenings catering private events for a company called Reverie Hospitality. On Sundays, she did her mother's laundry, called her younger brother in Atlanta, and sat with a cup of tea she could not afford to sit with for long. She was not the kind of woman people wrote stories about. She was the kind of woman who kept other people's stories from falling apart. She had grown up watching her mother move through rooms the same way, quiet and purposeful, and somehow always the most important person there, even when no one noticed. Her mother had brought that quality all the way from Accra. Flora had inherited it without trying. She read rooms the way other people read books, quickly, accurately, with the quiet conviction that the details no one else catches are always the ones that matter. Which is why, on the night everything changed, Flora Mensah saw what no one else saw. The penthouse on the 42nd floor belonged to a man named Chairman Wu. That was all the briefing Flora had received from her supervisor before they sent her up with the other servers. 20 guests, private anniversary dinner, dress code, black. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not linger. Do not look at anyone for too long. She had done this kind of event 100 times. Still, the moment the elevator opened, she felt it. That particular pressure in the air that exists in rooms where real power lives. Where the wrong word in the wrong ear could end a career, or a life. The room smelled like sandalwood and restraint. 20 guests, just as promised. Old money in tailored suits. Younger men with the practiced stillness of people who have learned that the most dangerous thing you can do in a powerful room is move too much. And then there was him, standing at the far window with his back to the room and a glass of water in his hand. Not champagne. Water, Flora noticed because she notices things. Kim Seojun. She would not learn his name until later. In that first moment, he was only a silhouette against the city lights. Broad-shouldered, still. The kind of still that takes years to learn. The city spread behind him like something he owned. She moved through the room with her tray. Eyes forward, steps measured. The other servers laughed quietly near the kitchen corridor. Flora did not laugh. She was watching. She was always watching. And that is how she saw it. A man at the bar, mid-40s, silver tie. The kind of face that smiles too easily, which always means the smile is covering something. He reached into his jacket pocket with 2 fingers, withdrew something small, and tipped it into the 3rd glass from the left with the practiced casualness of someone who had done it before. Flora's tray did not waver. Her face did not change, but her chest turned to ice, because the server behind her had just been handed that exact tray. 3rd glass from the left, and she heard the instruction, clear and low. That one goes to Mr. Kim. She had about 4 seconds. She had 4 seconds before the server crossed the room. Before the glass reached the man at the window. Before whatever was in that glass did what it was designed to do. Flora was not a hero. She was a woman who needed her paycheck. She was a woman who had learned very early that the safest thing you can do in a room full of powerful people is make yourself small. She thought about that for exactly 1 second. Then she stepped forward and let her tray collide with the other server's arm. Glass hit floor. Champagne spread across the marble in a slow, expensive arc. The sound was like a small crash at the edge of a very large silence. Every head in the room turned. Flora pressed her eyes closed for half a breath. Then she crouched and began gathering the broken glass with her bare hands, murmuring apologies in the practiced tone of someone who has spent years apologizing for things that were not their fault. The other server whispered something sharp. Flora did not respond. She was watching the man with the silver tie from the corner of her eye. His jaw had tightened. His smile had gone somewhere it couldn't be found. And the man at the window had turned around. Kim Seojun was looking directly at her. Not at the broken glass. Not at the mess. At her. With the focused attention of someone who has just seen something they were not supposed to see. Flora looked away first. She always looked away first. But before she did, she caught it. The smallest thing. A flicker of something in his expression that was not confusion and was not anger. It was recognition. She was dismissed early. Her supervisor handed her an envelope and told her the family appreciated her service, but tonight's arrangement would be handled by a different team. She was welcome to go. Flora took the envelope without argument. She changed in the service hallway. She pulled her coat on and pressed the button for the freight elevator. The doors opened. Kim Seojun was standing inside. He was alone. No security. No assistant. Which told her everything about how controlled the situation still was, because a man like him did not go anywhere without being watched over unless he had specifically arranged to. He looked at her. She looked at him. He said nothing. She stepped inside because what else could she do? The doors closed. The elevator descended. 38 floors of silence between them. And Flora stared straight ahead with her hands folded in front of her and her heartbeat doing something she would not describe later as calm. At the 22nd floor, he said, in English that had no accent and no warmth and no hostility, "You saw him." It was not a question. Flora said nothing for 4 seconds. Then, "I don't know what you mean." He turned to look at her, not aggressively, just with that focused attention again, the kind that feels like being read. "You saved my life, and then you looked away. Why?" She met his eyes. Once. Clean. Because looking at things you're not supposed to see has consequences. He was quiet for a long moment. The elevator reached the lobby. He stepped out first, then stopped. Without turning around, he said, "I need to know your name." She should have walked past him. She should have gone home. But there was something in how he stood, something in the stillness. Like a man who had just spent the last hour realizing that the only person in a room of 20 who had been paying attention was someone no one else would remember. "Flora," she said. He nodded once, like he was filing it somewhere important. Then he walked away into the lobby without looking back, and 2 men in dark coats materialized at his sides as if they had been waiting in the air. Flora woke up and told herself it was over. She made her tea. She counted what was left of her money. She called the dry cleaner to say she would be in by 7. She told herself the man on the 42nd floor was someone else's problem, that whatever was happening in his world had nothing to do with hers, that she had done a good thing by accident, and the decent thing now was to forget all of it. She almost believed herself. Then her phone rang. Unknown number. She ignored it. It rang again. She ignored it again. The third time she answered, because something in the cadence felt deliberate, like it knew she was there. Silence on the line. Then a voice she recognized. Low, unhurried. I need to ask you something, and I need the answer, to be honest. Flora sat down on her kitchen floor because she had been standing too long. How did you know? What made you look at him? She thought about lying. She thought about giving him nothing. Then she thought about the man with the silver tie and the practiced smile, and she said, he was too relaxed. Everyone in a room like that is performing something. Confidence, boredom, power. He was performing calm, and people who are actually calm don't perform it. A pause so long she thought the call had dropped. Then, I'd like to meet with you today. I have work, she said. I know, I'll have someone cover the shift. She should have said no. She should have hung up. She should have done any of the reasonable things a reasonable person would do when a stranger calls and rearranges their life with 6 words. Where? She said. If this story has you locked in right now, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss what happens next. And tell me in the comments, do you trust him yet, or would you run? A car arrived at her building at 10:45 in the morning. Black. No plates she could read. Tinted windows that told her nothing about who or what was inside. A driver who did not look at her when she got in, which meant he had been specifically instructed not to. Flora sat in the back with her hands in her lap and watched the city change through the window as they drove north, then west, then into a neighborhood she recognized as the kind of place that does not appear on any map a regular person would look at. She thought about her mother. Her mother used to say, "The most dangerous room is the one you were specifically invited into." Flora had not told anyone where she was going. She had not told anyone she was going anywhere at all. She felt the weight of that as the car slowed in front of a building with no sign and no visible entrance until a section of the wall simply opened. He was already inside, sitting at a long table with nothing on it except a cup of tea and a single sheet of paper. No guards visible, but Flora had learned to feel the presence of people who were paid to be unfelt. She sat across from him without being asked. He looked at her for a moment without speaking, like he was confirming something he had already decided. The man you saw last night. His name is Min Jae-won. He has worked for my family for 11 years. Flora kept her expression neutral. He is also the reason 3 people who worked for me are no longer alive. Silence. I couldn't prove it. Not until last night. Not until someone outside the family saw him clearly enough to confirm what I had already suspected. He slid the sheet of paper across the table. A photograph. The man from the bar, silver tie and comfortable smile. I need a witness. Someone he doesn't know. Someone he won't see coming. Flora looked at the photograph. She looked up at him. And if I say no? He met her eyes with something close to honesty. Then I drive you home and you never hear from me again. You have my word. The word of a man she knew nothing about. But she was very good at reading people, and what she read in him right then was not manipulation. It was exhaustion. The specific kind that comes from not being able to trust anyone for a very long time. She looked back at the photograph. What would it involve? He arrived for dinner exactly on time. That, Flora had come to understand, was the first thing about Min Jae-won. He was never late and never early. He existed precisely where he was supposed to be, at precisely the moment he was supposed to be there. It made him feel reliable. It made him feel safe. It was, she now understood, the most dangerous thing about him. She was seated at the restaurant as a guest, a new girlfriend of a junior associate in Kim's organization, there for a casual dinner, with a recording device no larger than a button sewn into the collar of her coat. Min Jae-won sat 3 tables away. He ordered methodically. He spoke quietly to the man across from him. He smiled often, always at the right moment. Flora ate her food and watched him the way water watches a stone, steady, patient, willing to wait. And then something happened that was not in any plan anyone had made. Min Jae-won looked up from his table and looked directly at her, not with recognition, with the particular attention that means, you are in my line of sight, and I have not yet decided whether you are a problem. Flora smiled at the associate across from her and laughed at something she hadn't heard. She did not look at Min Jae-won again, but she felt his gaze stay on her for 7 more seconds. She counted every single one. She was brought back to the building after the dinner. Kim was waiting. He stood when she came in, which surprised her. She had not expected that from him. She handed over the recording device. He took it and set it aside and then looked at her face. He saw me, she said, a small tightening around Kim's jaw. How long? 7 seconds, maybe 8. I don't think he recognized me from the party. You don't think? I don't think. He was quiet for a moment. Then he moved to the window and looked out at the city below in the same way he had the first night she saw him. Back to the room. Water in hand. The city spreading out beneath him like something he carried and could not put down. I'll have someone take you home, he said. I can take the train. Flora. The way he said her name, like it was the first careful word in a sentence he was still building. Let me send someone with you. Please. It was such a small word in his mouth. She had the sense it was one he almost never used, that it cost him something to say it, that the careful control of him had slipped, just for a moment, and what was underneath it was not coldness. It was fear, not for himself, for her. She said yes. She was in danger, she knew that. She was involved in something she had not asked to be involved in, with a man she did not know, in a world that had its own rules and its own consequences and its own definitions of things like loyalty and betrayal. She told herself she would finish this. She would do what she had agreed to do. She would give him what he needed, and then she would go back to her counter on 9th Street and her evenings and her Sunday tea, and she would forget all of it. She told herself that for 4 days, and then she was back in the building because he had called and said simply, "There has been a development. I need you to hear it from me directly." And she had come. Because the truth was, she had been coming before he called. She had been replaying the quiet of that room, the city behind the glass, the sound of him saying her name like it was a word he was learning to mean. She sat across from him again. He told her the recording had been enough, that Min Jae-won had been removed from the organization, that the danger to Kim was, for now, contained. He told her she was free to go, that no one would contact her again, that she would be paid for her time and protected from any blowback. He said it all with precision and care, like he had rehearsed it, like he was giving her a clean exit and watching carefully to see if she would take it. She sat with it for a moment. Then she said, What did he want? Min Jae-won. What was this really about? Kim looked at her for a long time. 11 years ago, my father made a decision that destroyed Min's family. Min has been waiting to repay that ever since. Flora absorbed that. And was your father wrong? She asked. He did not look away. Yes, he was. It was the last answer she had expected. And it was the one that made her stay in her seat when she should have stood up to leave. She did not know how it happened. One moment she was sitting across a table from him with the weight of everything between them. The next, they were on the building's private rooftop. 2 cups of tea she hadn't asked for, but that had appeared anyway. And the city spread out below them in 1,000 lit windows like an audience of everyone who wasn't watching. She asked him about the business. He told her some of it, the legitimate parts. The empire his father had built from import trade and real estate, and the kind of careful social architecture that gets called networking when it is polite and gets called something else when it is not. She told him about her mother, about Accra, about the way her mother cleaned other people's houses and still walked into every room like she owned it. He listened the way few people listen. Like what she was saying was the only thing happening. She sounds like someone who never let the room decide who she was, he said. She never did. Neither do you. Flora wrapped both hands around her cup. She did not say, "That is one of the most precise things anyone has ever said to me." She did not say, "I have been in this world for 32 years, and I am tired of rooms that try to make me smaller." She did not say any of it, but she thought all of it. And somehow, in the silence that followed, she had the alarming sense that he had heard it anyway. The wind moved between them. The city below was loud in the way cities are when you are up high enough that you can't hear any of the specific sounds, only the general hum of everything trying to exist at once. "You should leave," he said, "before this becomes something I can't protect you from." She looked at him. He was looking at the city. "Is that a warning?" she asked. "It's the most honest thing I've said to anyone in a long time." She should have taken it. She should have gone home. Instead, she looked at his profile against the city light and thought about how exhausting it must be to hold that much power and feel that alone inside it. She did not say that either. She just stayed. She left at midnight. The same black car. The same silent driver. She sat in the back and watched the city and told herself she was being careful, that she was not falling into anything, that she was a grown woman with rent to pay, and a mother who needed her, and a life that existed outside of rooftop conversations with Korean Mafia heirs who said her name like they meant it. She was 3 blocks from her building when the driver's phone rang. He answered on the car's speaker without thinking. A voice she did not recognize, and then a name she did. Min Jae-won. The driver cut the call immediately, looked at her in the rearview mirror. Flora said nothing. Her face was perfectly still, but her mind was already moving through what it meant. Min Jae-won had been removed from the organization. That was what Kim had told her. Contained. The danger was contained. But a removed man does not make phone calls to a family driver. Unless. The car stopped in front of her building. Flora stepped out. She did not look back at the driver. She walked through her lobby and up her stairs, and she sat on the edge of her bed in the dark, and she thought about one thing. Min Jae-won had not been removed from the organization. He had simply moved to a different part of it. And Kim Seojun did not know. Or someone else did. Someone who had been at the party. Someone who had heard his name called out across the room of 20. Someone who had watched Flora Mensah knock a glass to the floor and understood exactly what she was. Her phone buzzed. A message, unknown number. 5 words. She looked at them for a long time. Then she looked at the darkness of her ceiling, and she understood that she had not been brought into this world to be a witness. She had been brought in because someone on the inside needed her there. The question was which side of the war had chosen her, and whether Kim Seojun was really as unaware as he seemed, or whether the most dangerous thing in that penthouse on the 42nd floor had never been the glass with the poison in it. It had been the man who did not drink from his. If this story hit different, and you know it did, like this video, subscribe right now, and drop a comment below. What do you think happens next? Because part 2 changes everything.